In this walkthrough, I'm going to take you through the use of colors, positioning and pseudo classes in CSS. So to go with this, there are 3 example files that you can get from the course website in the downloadable archive. So in the section 6 directory, you'll find color HTM, positioning and pseudo classes HTM. Now I've already loaded these into a program editor so that we can take a look at them. So what I want to show you is some of the things you can do with color. So let's have a look at the color example file in the Opera browser. And here you can see we've got some blue text on yellow. Underneath that there's some black text on an orange linear gradient. That means it goes in one direction, in this case from top to bottom. And underneath that some black text on a radial gradient which goes from the center to the outside radially. So there you go, 3 different types of colors being applied, in this case to backgrounds. Now the way this is being done is through some classes. I've created a blue on yellow class, an orange grad and a green grad class. Now for the time being I'd like you to ignore these sets of lines here that have been commented out. I'll show you what they are a little later. Instead I just want to concentrate on the rules that aren't commented. So here's the first one: background yellow, color blue. So that's blue on yellow. Very simple. Background yellow. Now this is the same as doing background color yellow, but you can use this shorthand for it and just say background yellow, and it's less for you to type in. So there we go, background yellow, color blue, and this is exactly what you get when applied here to this div. And as you can see here, blue text, and there's a line break on a yellow line break background, all within a div with the class name of blue on yellow. And there you go. Okay, the second div underneath here is called orange. It uses a class of orange grad, black text on an orange linear gradient. Let's have a look at the rule for that. Orange grad. Set the background to orange. Now why would I do that when we're doing a gradient? Well, the answer is some browsers don't support gradients, so we at least want a fallback position where something's displayed, and so I start off the collection of rules by setting the background to orange. Then below that we get to the linear gradient rules. Now the main rule is this one here, linear gradient, and what you specify is where to start, the original color and the color that it should end up at, and that is the syntax for this command, or should I say for this rule. But all the browsers have implemented this differently. So if you're using Firefox, you have to supply minus mos minus or dash mos dash before the rule name. For Mozilla based browsers to understand that, these would be ones such as Firefox. Alternatively, if you're using a WebKit based browser, this would be one such as Safari from Apple or Google's Chrome browser. It needs the dash WebKit dash prefix. The Opera browser needs a -0 dash prefix, and Microsoft needs -ms dash before it as well, which is all pretty crazy, but that's what they do, or I should say that's what the browser developers do when they consider that a CSS rule hasn't been fully brought into the standard yet. They will then use their own proprietary rule names. Eventually, just linear gradient should work in all browsers once it's been accepted by all the developers that this particular rule is used by all of them. But it may be some time. So in the meantime, you've got to use them all these rules together to enable a linear gradient to appear in all the major modern browsers. Okay, so we'll have a look again here what we have. Black text on an orange linear gradient. It goes from a light orange to a darker orange color. So it goes from hash FB0 to hash F50. Now, on slightly older browsers, you can also provide a gradient, but only on some of them. For example, on older Apple Safari browsers, there is a different WebKit gradient rule that you can use. Now notice this isn't -WebKit -gradient, it's just called WebKit gradient, and you have to tell it that it's a linear from left top to left bottom, and then you have to use a function from #fbo to #f50. So you can look at the example file and download it, and you can put this extra rule in if you want to support older WebKit browsers. And at the same time, you can support Microsoft browsers earlier than Internet Explorer 9 by using this rule here. I'll get rid of that comment and bring it back so you can see it a little bit more clearly. There we are. Basically, the rule is using Microsoft's filter rule, and this string here, prog_id, use the dx image form transform.microsoft.gradient function, assigning start color str to the start color and end color str to the end color. And then Microsoft browsers going back quite a few versions will also be able to display gradients. Again, if you're just intending to target modern browsers and assume that your users are fully upgraded, you can comment all of that out, or just ignore all of that and don't worry about it. Okay, so now you've seen standard color settings. So there's the background color, the foreground text color, or linear gradients. But you can also provide a radial gradient. Let's have a look at this again. Here you can see the radial gradient going from the center to the outside, or from the outside to the center, depending which way you look at it. And so here that's applied with the class green_grad. And here the radial -gradient rule is applied, and the initial argument is center, which says start at the center and then begin with this color and end with that color. And again, Mozilla, WebKit, Opera, Microsoft browsers all have their own different syntax to achieve the same effect. And you also have a version of the rule for earlier versions of the WebKit browser. In this case, you tell it that you want a radial gradient going from center center, center center, and then the from and the to. And you can also put in a Microsoft equivalent gradient too, if you like. Although in this case, radial gradients aren't supported, you'd have to put in a linear one to be backward compatible.